Everyone, this is Alfredo Alvarez here to present my single case design. So let's get started. So now the goal that my client wants to achieve is to increase exercise by increasing how many times they go walking per week and increasing the number of steps they take per day within the week. Now the target behavior is to incorporate more walking during the day and week, and the measuring instruments are self report, an iPhone step counter, and an Excel spreadsheet used to track the number of steps taken per day, which I will then use to add up, all the steps at the end of the week. So now, in terms of the interventions, it is to increase walks for exercise from 3 times a week to 4 times a week, and the client will increase their daily steps by 2,000 steps on regular days and 4,000 steps on days that they go walking for exercise. So now the evaluation plan. So in order to establish a baseline, we're going to review the steps that the client has taken throughout the first week and the number of times they walked for exercise. Um, and so the client will then, based on that, the client will then increase their steps by 2,000 steps on days that they don't exercise, and then 4,000 steps on the days that they do exercise. Um, and they will also increase the number of times they walk for exercise from 3 times a week to 4 times a week. So now this here is how I was able to kind of measure and observe the number of steps that the client has taken throughout each week. Out of these days, there were 11 days where the client took more steps than the previous day. And then there were 9 days where the client took fewer steps than the previous day. And if you notice here, our data was only collected Monday through Friday. So Monday is missing, information in terms of like steps taken previously, or if that day, how many steps they took compared to the previous day. So now the client was unsuccessful in increasing uh, going on walks for exercise from 3 times a week to 4 times a week. Prior to establishing baseline, the client had self reported that they walk for exercise 3 times per week. Now, the client had only 1 week where they met the intervention, and that was in the fifth week. In the first week, they didn't walk at all. Second week, they were able to only get out twice. Third week, they got out 3 times. Fourth week was twice. And then the fifth week, that's when they were able to meet the intervention. So now, due to the client not walking for exercise in the first week, it was hard to analyze and establish the data for the increase in steps on days the client walked for exercise. Um, but overall, this data here shows just kind of like overall steps per week that the client took. In the first week, the client averaged 4,586 steps per day. In the second week, they averaged 9,967, which was an average increase of 1,076 steps per day. In the third week, they averaged 9,461, which was an average increase of 975 steps when compared to baseline. Fourth week was 7,857 steps, which was an increase of 654 steps per day. And in the fifth week, they averaged 11,834 steps, which worked out to an increase of 1,149 steps. Now, this data was based on averages. There were actually several days, I believe it was 6 days, where the client walked 2,000 or more steps than the previous day. And then, kind of what I learned from this experiment was that, it's difficult to account for a client's ability or true willingness to participate in the experiment. Longitudinal research is also necessary to really see if the subject or participant can stick to the interventions and if it produces a change in their behavior. And one thing I've learned also is that the interventions must be clear, they must be concise and replicable in order to replicate the experiment, other places with other people. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for your time, and take care.